Lights on the horizon, and I'm trying to find my way back home on my own. But I don't know who I'm supposed to be finding. Is somebody lying? 'Cause I was told I would meet my maker, but now I'm just walking with the Savior tonight. But now I'm just walking with the Savior tonight. Open your doors, don't make no noise.
Hello, welcome to the show. We have Shattering the Narrative today with my co-host Sheila Matthews. We have a very special guest today. We got Matt the Welder for Florida Agriculture Commissioner. Welcome to the show, Matt. So glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Hi, Matt.
so we've been following Matt's campaign here for a while, and there's a lot of interesting new developments in what's kind of going on in the race, and we wanted firsthand kind of perspective from Matt. If you could give us just a little update about kind of who you are, kind of what's been going on with the campaign, any new updates, how's the race looking?
The race is looking pretty good on our end. The other side is pulling out all the stops they can, including having the Republican Party of Florida write letters to all of 67 recs and say, listen, we're going to have a vote. We're going to endorse Wilton Simpson during the primary. And they're going to do first, the chairs are going to have to vote on it up there in Tallahassee, like Joe Grutters, Evan Power, Javante Teague, and all of them. And then once they do their vote on the 10th, there'll be another vote on the 20th, I believe.
Wow.
Wait, let me pause this. First of all, I have to say, I saw you in Vero Beach and you were amazing. CJ had coordinated your events and it was overflowing with people. And you really did such a wonderful job explaining your position on the importance of the candidacy that you're seeking here. But and you've got a huge following too. You're very grassroots. I was really amazed how many followers that you have. And I really didn't know the importance of the position. So, can you tell people what the position is? It's cabinet level, right, for Florida?
It's a cabinet position, so they vote on stuff like the conservation land. So that $83 million 4-acre sandbar that got approved, that taxpayers paid for, that has no conservation value, the Commissioner of Agriculture has a vote in that. Then they manage the Department of Forestry. Then they handle the Division of Licensing. Then they handle even stuff like charities. And with the charity stuff, I've come across the House Bill 433, which is the Florida Farm Bill, and then they have SB 290. I've come across a group of charities that actually works on behalf of big agriculture, and they're acting more as like a C50C4 instead of a nonprofit, and they do more lobbying. What they're doing is they're acting like stakeholders and acting like, hey, this bill's not bad. This bill's not gonna hurt environmentalists or the conservation community. It's not gonna silence our voice. And they're literally working on behalf of big agriculture in the state of Florida. And the Division of Ag, one of the things they do is they investigate and regulate charities in the state of Florida.
Wow, I just, AbleChild's registered and I worked with that division. And, there's quite a bit of paperwork that you have to submit. AbleChild is a nonprofit. And, I do want to make it clear here, I'm not taking a position. I'm very involved in informed consent for people.
Mhm.
So they make their own choices. But I have found, like you're describing, that there's such a conflict of interest within getting, even testifying on a bill. It's just so overwhelming for the consumer and for the average voter to even be heard. So the interesting thing with the position of overseeing nonprofits is huge, because we have a lot of corrupt nonprofits out there that are, really not over, the paperwork that I had to submit was quite substantial,
Mhm.
and So I think it is an important position. I had no idea that before meeting you that's what that job entailed, and then all the building that is coming to Florida. Can you explain to us? I mean, I think that people are really worried about these data centers. They're really worried about land. A lot of these foreign religions that are building mega, mosques and churches and religious, across the board, I think people are worried. Is that something you handle?
The biggest thing with, well, religious charities are exempt from the division of ag, from registering and all that stuff. So when I'm saying charities, it's like Salvation Army, that those sort of things like that, and even like your smaller charities that go down to it. And when it comes to overdevelopment in Florida, the ag land is so important because a lot of it, like the ranch land where the cattle are, it's got the wetlands on it, and the wetlands are recharge points for the aquifer. Well, right now, at least on the West Coast, just about everybody on the West Coast, every municipality is declaring a water shortage right now because of the drought and the over pumping and everything. So we really have to start looking at water resources and go, why are we the people being told to cut back when, like here in the Bone Valley region where Mosaic is, we're being told your lawn is going to have to die because we need to conserve water. But you look at Mosaic and they're permitted to pump 70 million gallons a day out of the aquifer. Now they celebrate that they're only pumping 30 million gallons a day from the aquifer. And then you look at the strawberry farmers and the groves, what's left of the groves, they have to use water to protect their groves and their vegetables in the freeze. So their farmers are getting the blame for over pumping and robbing the water from the aquifer when in actuality it's Mosaic. And I get it, they bring a lot of jobs or what have you, but when you're telling everybody else to cut back and you have one industry that's able to pump 30 million gallons a day from the aquifer and they're not told to cut back, eventually we're going to run into a problem. Do we let Mosaic keep pumping like that, or do we, the people, just get told, all right, look, we got to conserve water, you got to install low flow toilets and everything else along that way?
Wow. Yeah.
What
Yeah, that's
what is this?
ridiculous.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, CJ. CJ was telling me about, and I've been reading about it too, is the bread seems to be having chemicals in it. Does that have something to do with the
Roundup.
agriculture?
It's got a glyphosate in it, which is Roundup. So, and we don't really grow wheat in Florida. It's more of an up north thing. But if it's appearing in bread, it's appearing in other stuff that we do grow in Florida, the chemicals that we're spraying. And you look at some of these chemicals that we're spraying in the state of Florida, you can't spray them in Europe because of the health risk associated with them. Like the one is Tribune, which is diquat to bromide. They say even with the proper PPP or PPE on, excuse me, there's still a risk to the applicator, to the farmer. Then you look at paraquat, that's a restricted use pesticide or herbicide, whatever you want to call it. It's an umbrella term in the state of Florida. The herbicides are lumped under pesticides. But you look at like paraquat, you can spray it in the state of Florida, but it has been linked to neurological disorders. There's been farmers up in like Michigan that have been spraying it on their grove for 30 years or orchards up that way. And suddenly the guy, he was into wood carving, his hand shakes so bad right now, he can't carve his wood anymore. So a lot of these pesticides, these chemicals, what we're starting to realize is, number one, like you look at the FWC, they spray herbicides for the invasive aquatic species in the lakes. Well, one of their most effective herbicides at curbing hydrilla became resistant to it. So now they're having to mix multiple pest or herbicides to dump into our waterways. And the same thing with like the Asian citrus psyllid, which is the insect that carries citrus greening all across the groves. It's resistant to pesticide. So as they're spraying this stuff, the insects and the plants that they're targeting are actually becoming resistant to the chemicals we're using.
Wow. And what about the orange groves? I mean, I find it really frightening that in Florida, it seems to me that there's no more orange groves. And like, are we going to be importing our oranges from California? Like, I was in the grocery store and the oranges were from California. And I find that amazing to me. Is there, are we losing the orange groves? And I also, one other quick question regarding that is, I heard the Japanese need our orange groves because there's a chemical within it that they use for fragrances. Is so? Do you know anything about that?
So we've lost about 90% of our citrus industry in the state of Florida. Like, it's decimated it, and it all goes back to citrus greening. They imported an ornamental plant from Asia, and when they did, that brought the greening. And then a few years later came the insect, and then the insect just took the greening all across the grove, all across the state of Florida. So California actually has the same insect and the same bacteria, citrus greening, affecting its orange products out that way. They had a nursery that was growing orange trees. They destroyed 32,000 trees on this guy's property because 2 miles away, they found citrus greening in California. And it's not just California. Brazil, where we get a lot of our oranges from, they've lost about 40% of their crop to citrus greening. So it's a bigger problem than just Florida. It's a bigger problem than just the United States. It's happening everywhere except for like the Mediterranean basin and Australia. And in Brazil, they tried to spray pesticides, more pesticides, 46 treatments in a year they were doing in their groves in Brazil. And what they realized was the insect carrying that disease is resistant to the pesticides that they're using because they reproduce so quickly. It's hard to kill them as they're reproducing. So it's a big problem, and not a lot of people are talking about it.
Well, I
Okay.
like
Yeah.
that you were.
That's my point here. So you're talking about it. I hear you talking about it. I don't hear anybody. This is agricultural issues, and they're very serious from what I'm understand. And I don't hear anybody else talking about it in the Department of Agriculture or the people currently running it. And why aren't they talking about it? And what happens? What kind of pushback are they giving you? Because you mentioned it earlier a little bit about what they're kind of
Oh, they want to
doing.
keep me out. They want to keep me out as much as anything they can to keep me out of office. So if you really wanted to help farmers, right, and you had a Florida farm bill, the first thing you would put in there is the right to repair your own equipment. Because when you look at big companies like John Deere or Massey Ferguson or even Caterpillar or Komatsu, the equipment needs software. Okay, it's not like the stuff years ago where you got a few wrenches and a screwdriver in the toolbox of the tractor and you could go out there and fix your equipment. These things are like spaceships in some cases. They have sensors all over them, just like cars, how they have emissions. The tractors now have emission compliance that they have to go along with. So you need the software from the manufacturer, and you can't hardly get the software from the manufacturer. And that causes downtime for the farmers because they got to call the manufacturer or their dealer, schedule an appointment to come out. And it also costs them money because instead of them being able to purchase the software and use it to get the trouble codes off the equipment and maybe put in a sensor that's $1,200, by the time you buy or you have them come out to the farm, you're looking at like a $5,000 bill by the time it's all said and done. So if you wanted to help farmers, there's things you can do that aren't in this current farm bill right now. Like, there was nothing in the farm bill for the citrus industry. They got totally left out. And they sold the Florida farm bill as a way to protect your gas powered weed eater or your lawn equipment. And they left out the food disparagement part that everybody, make America healthy again, Captains for Clean Water, and all of the people pushing to stop the use of herbicides and pesticides in not just our waterway but our food. All of that, they left that disparagement part out from all of their social media posts, from every time they talk about it. They didn't talk about it until we started to talk about it. And once we started to talk about it, then it was the pushback was, it's not going to take away your freedom of speech. It's only if you lie about a product and you say something false. Well, who decides what's false? A big company? Isn't that what we just battled with COVID-19 and all of the vaccines and all that stuff? So you're not allowed to question the science when it comes to agriculture food products?
Mhm. That's awful. I mean, I find it outrageous that they're isn't this open process during this primary. You don't have to be a Republican to be outraged about this, because it's happening to the Democrats too, where they pick these favorites and they don't want somebody who's for the people, and they shut them out. And I think that that is a real big problem, especially when we are no longer protecting our oranges. I mean, that is, to me, it should be the number one issue in Florida, is to figure out how to save our orange groves.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we need to be able to build. We need to be able to grow our own. That's the whole move. This America First move. This be able to grow our own, be self sustainable. If they're taking all that away and they're building these developments, I don't a lot of it's a lot of foreign countries that are also building these developments. Not even Americans, and it's getting out of control in Florida. So
It's funny you say it's foreign developments they're building, because there's a company called Walton Global, and right here in Hillsborough County, they bought up like 1,200 acres of ag land. It was old cow pastures up there at Charlie Taylor in Midway Road, and they're building the farms at I forget the name of the subdivision now, but they're building like 2,400 houses up that way. And what you figure out is it's a group of real estate investors from Canada, but they're not just Canadian real estate investors. They're investors from the Middle East, from China, and from all around the world that are going through Canada and having the Canadian firm come down to Florida. And it's not Florida, too. It's all across the United States, all the way out to California, all the way through the Carolinas. I just happened to stumble across it here in Hillsborough County. And they're using a Canadian investment firm on behalf of China and Dubai to develop our ag land into houses. And they're promising they like the North American market, they say, because it's more stable, the housing market is. And they're building these homes that aren't the same quality of the homes that we were building years ago. I think if you were building houses built to last 30 years, it would be one thing. But you look at like the Seminole tribe of Florida has a lawsuit with Lennar right now because they built 700 houses on the tribe's land. Well, the last house they built was in 2023, and this lawsuit started around 2025. They tried to settle it out of court, but now it's going through litigation or what have you. So they built 700 houses on the tribe's land, and none of them are habitable right now, according to the Seminole tribe of Florida, because of mold, because of HVAC issues. They all had different issues, but the quality was so poor that the Seminole tribe of Florida said, all of those houses that you built, we can't live in them. And Lennar refused to try to work with the Seminole tribe of Florida to fix them. And it's not a Lennar thing. It's pretty much every mass like cookie carbon cutter houses that they're building right now. And the quality, I mean, they're putting up like it's like pressboard wood that's been sitting out in the weather as it's getting rained on and stuff. And as they're nailing on the sheets, you can already see the mildew forming. So it's they're building them as cheap as possible. They're not passing on the savings to the new home buyers. And a lot of times they're using an agriculture subsidy called the Florida Greenbelt Law, which was originally to help farmers and ranchers keep their land and get a tax break. Well, what they do is they call it the rent-a-cow loophole. They'll get a piece of property like the Charlie Taylor Midway Road, and as they're getting it rezoned, as they're pulling permits, and as they're drawing up the plans for the community, they're getting a subsidy because they have cattle on that property. And the subsidy can be for they don't even have to own the cattle. All they have to have is a lease for cattle on that property, and they get greenbelt, and they're not paying what they should be paying. So, the big push this year in the governor's race is no property tax. But how are you going to pay for it without raising sales tax? One of the way you could do that is go ahead and fix our outdated greenbelt law to where we push the developers in special interest. Even Florida Power and Light uses the greenbelt loophole. So you push the special interest off the greenbelt and make sure it only applies to our farmers. And you would start recouping money to where you could start carving out the the the, the loss in revenue from no property taxes.
Wow, it's just so outrageous that somebody like you is being marginalized, because that's exactly what we need. We need somebody who's going to protect the farmers, that is going to protect the orange groves, that's going to be in this cabinet no matter who gets elected. Why? Tell me, what do we, the people, need to do to ensure that this primary is not corrupted and favorites aren't picked. I mean, CJ, you're in the Republican Party for the Young Republicans. What exactly, isn't there a rule against what they're doing here? I guess he might have froze, but
Yeah,
oh,
he's
there
coming
he
in
is.
and out.
Yeah. So I think that for me, I know there seems to be a rule that candidates can't, that in a primary, you have to allow both parties. I mean, if there isn't a rule, there should be both Democrats and Republicans. Everybody should have a fair share at the seat. So what are you doing to combat that?
Well, what they're doing is they're trying to put their finger on the scale and keep grassroots candidates out by doing this. So if the party endorses Wilton Simpson, which the letter indicates is what they're planning on doing, that they sent out, and this was sent out, it's got Evan Powers' name on the bottom of the letter, and it explains how they're going to do it or what have you. The biggest thing, that the most helpful thing you can do, is send a letter to the RPOF and just in the subject say complaint, and then say, listen, as a voter, as a registered Republican, we feel that you shouldn't be endorsing any candidate while the primary is occurring. After the primary, absolutely endorse your candidate, but to come out during the primaries and say we're going to endorse this candidate because he's better at fundraising, that's not fair to the grassroots candidates, and it's not fair to the voters who might not want that candidate, that he only excels in fundraising.
Mhm. So, who is this Powers guy? When you say the letter, who did the letter come from?
I got sent to it. So Evan Power is the chairman for the Republican Party of Florida. And it's interesting what they're doing this run, because he's actually running for Congress. Evan Power is. So as he's running for Congress, he's also trying to push a rule that says he can still be the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida simultaneously as he's running for Congress.
Wow, that's pretty much, is that like breaking news? I had no idea. I just went to a press conference with the governor. And, there's some things I really like about the governor. Um, but what you're telling me is this JD Powers or Mr.
Evan
Powers.
Power. Evan Power.
Let me write that down. Evan Powers. Okay, he's the head of the Republican Party and
Mhm.
he's running for Congress. I'm
Yep.
writing all this
I
down.
forget the district, but he's announced that he's running for Congress. He's got an endorsement already by the Attorney General, James, and a few other state senators or what have you. They're really pushing him. And the thing about it is he's a lobbyist. He's a lobbyist for a consulting firm called Ramba Consulting. And when you watch what has happened in the primaries in the past, okay, last year, you look at Hernando County, there was a firefighter running by the name of, I think it's Marvin Bainham. I always call him Marvin the firefighter because I think his last name's Bainham is how you pronounce it, but I don't know. So Marvin the firefighter is always a safe bet to say. So what they did to Marvin during the primaries, David Ramba has a political committee called Voters Response, and that political committee sent out mailers all across Hernando County. And what they did to Marvin was his shirt had like the badge of the firefighter on the T-shirt, and then it said, I think, like Tampa Fire Rescue up here. They took AI and they removed the firefighting images, and they put Biden Harris across his T-shirt and Biden Harris across his hat. And when you flip that mailer over and you read in the really fine print, it says images on this mailer have been altered using AI. That should be illegal right off the bat. Like, you shouldn't be able to use AI to manipulate an image on a political mailer. And
Oh,
the
I totally
I
agree.
believe the reason it was allowed is David Ramba, who owns Ramba Consulting, employs the Republican Party of Florida chairman, Evan Power. So if Evan was to have put his foot down and stopped that, he would have been literally biting the hand that feeds him.
Well, I think it's sickening that other senators or the governor or even, President Trump saying, I want this person in or I want this person in. I don't care for that. I think that the people need to decide who they want. Endorsements, like you said, should come afterwards.
Hmm.
But as a candidate, you're putting your time and your effort in to get torpedoed by your own party because of, manipulating. And believe me, I know all about it. They set up a hearing and they tell you it's in a different room. It's these small little manipulative things that they do to crush the people.
Hmm.
And who cares whether a congressman endorses you or not? Who cares if the president of the United States or whether you're left or you're right endorses you? Who cares? It's the people. It's you getting out to the people, and then the people deciding, I really like what he has to say. I can Google and see that he's not attached to a consulting firm. He's not a lobbyist. I mean, to be picking these favorites, I mean, I think that maybe a more effective way to counter this is to put out letters to this Evan Powers. I mean,
And that's what voters have been doing. I actually posted the letter that I received on my social media, and it got a lot of comments saying, "Listen, we're going to be sending my letter." I had people send me the letter that they sent them. So if they still go through with this, they are knowingly going against the will of the people, and they do all kinds of sneaky things. Like, we all know politics are dirty, but until you get into it and you really start looking around, you don't realize how dirty it is. So I don't know if you guys got them down there. You said you're in Vero Beach.
I'm in Vero. I can't get involved in politics, but CJ can.
Uh
And
huh.
CJ, he'll have to take this on because I think that your letter should go out to the young Republicans and even the Democrats, because I'm sure you
Yeah,
appealed to.
anybody can send a letter, even if you're not a Republican. Whether they
Yeah.
listen to the letters or not is one thing. But what they did last primary was they sent out fake voter guides that looked like and used the likeness of the Republican Party of Florida. And the mailers were from a political committee called Make America Great Again. And they had Trump on there and they had Ron DeSantis on there. Neither man endorsed any candidate on that voter guide. And even the RPOF, these came out in Hillsborough, they came out in Lake County, they came out in Brevard County, I know. That's why I asked if they had maybe come out in Vero Beach. They looked like a legitimate mailer guide issued by the Florida Republican Party of Florida. So what it turned out to be was a fake voter guide made by a Make America Great political committee, which had nothing to do with Trump. It actually attached to I believe it's a former Sarasota school board member by the name of Eric Robinson. Eric Robinson controls a huge amount of political committees. He self-proclaims him to be the Prince of Darkness, is what he calls, because he deals in dark money through the PACs. This is Joe Grutter's business partner, and Joe Grutters is on the board of the Republican Party of Florida. So all of the GOP that had these fake images that came out in Hillsborough and Lake County and in Manatee, they came out in Manatee too. They came out in a bunch of counties. I just can't remember all of them. They all said, we're going to put our foot down. Whoever did this, we are going to figure out who did it, and they are going to pay. Well, I know who did it. So that means they know who did it. He hasn't paid. He hasn't, no repercussions to Eric Robinson, no repercussions to Joe Grutters. Now, Joe Grutters might have legitimately not knew it was going on because it was Eric Robinson on the chairman, but it's his business partner. So I have to believe he can't claim ignorance.
What is the deadline for you? Like, when is this decision going to be made regarding the primary and them endorsing or trying? What they're going to do is take your name off the ballot,
No, they're
or
not taking my name off the ballot. So what they're going to do is the party and all of the Republican executive committees are going to endorse my opponent, Wilton Simpson. So they think that's going to be a disadvantage. But at this point, it seems like an endorsement from the Republican Party of Florida is a bad thing at this point. Roger Stone just came out and said the Republican Party of Florida is so corrupt. And he just did this tweet earlier today, and he's not wrong. And when you look at all of the games they're playing to push their candidates to try to jockey them into position, they've done stuff like this to me in the past. For instance, when I ran for Hillsborough County Commissioner, they appointed my opponent into the position, into the seat that we were running for. And they did that to give her an advantage. That way it'll say incumbent, on the ballots and all that stuff that they vote for. But when I went back and looked, first it was funny how it happened. I got a call from a friend of mine because I started as a cook in Florida when I had my first job at 16 years old, and then I was a truck driver, and then I became a welder, and then I became a mechanic. So, I've had a mess of jobs, and I know you never know who's actually worked with Matt the welder. And they were having this big la-di-da function for the Republican Party of Florida in Hillsborough County, and I get a call during it, and they said, "You're not going to believe this. They're going to appoint that woman that you're running against. So she's going to be the commissioner and the incumbent." I knew it as soon as they said it during that meeting. So I actually text one of the journalists that had been following the races locally, and she sent me back a text. "That's what we're hearing on our end too." So they've always finagled and tried to keep me out any way they can.
We can't let any candidate happen, whether it's you or a Democrat or a Republican. This is just not fair. It's sick. It's really a sick, and people are sick of it. We are really sick of it because we know it's corrupt. Tell me about your followers. Like CJ is just in shock how many people follow you. You have quite a following. How did you achieve that?
I told the truth, I guess. I don't know. I just started to talk about what nobody else was talking. So you turn on the news in the morning, and the same political consultants used by the Republican Party of Florida, who are making millions of dollars, are speaking to, like, Good Day Tampa Bay. They're speaking on your news, but they're not getting asked questions about how much did so and so pay you for this race or that race or what have you. They're getting talked to like, oh, they're the political consultants. And people don't realize, you hear the word political consultant, you don't realize the political consultant is almost like the puppet master, if you will. Like in Manatee County, there was a political consultant by the name of Anthony Pedicini, and almost everybody, if I remember correctly, all of the board at one time in Manatee County up until last year, or 2024, excuse me, they were all using the same political consultant. And when the voters figured it out in Manatee, the voters got together and the voters primaried them out, grassroots candidates, all in Manatee County pretty much. And they rejected the political consultant. Once they figured out the game, they went out and they said, "Oh, we shouldn't be voting just in November. We need to be voting in the primaries, because that's when the selection happens. That's when the puppets get in there." And they pushed him out. And after they pushed out all of those puppets, for lack of a better term, the Republican Party of Florida came in and suspended the Republican Executive Committee in Manatee County. And that's what they're using right now, as anybody that goes against the party that's in the Republican Executive Committee. They're using Manatee. Manatee is like the example. We don't want to get suspended like Manatee County. And it's even to where I've had some Republican Executive Committee members reach out, not the actual like chairman of each county, but the members of the county. They've reached out to me and they said, our chairman is refusing to let you come in and speak. And I'm a Republican. They should have to let me speak at the executive committees. If I request to speak, or the members reach out to me and I say, "Yeah, sure, I'll call up and I'll see if I can speak." But what they're saying is, we don't want to offend Wilton Simpson. And they're doing the same thing in the governor's race too. I've even heard some say they're refusing to let Jay Collins come into this executive committee, or they're refusing to let Paul, was it Reinhardt or whatever, the Paul fellow that's running for governor, they're refusing to let him come talk, because they already have the candidate that they want to win, and they're positioning that candidate to win. So if you can refuse to let those candidates speak to the executive committees across the state, Well, you're not letting them speak to maybe a good proportion of the voting public that would come out in the primaries. So there's little tricks that they're doing right now. And nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. And it's really sad because you can't say you're America first. You can't say you're Florida first if you refuse to call out corruption in your own party. By definition, you are party first.
Yeah, yeah, I think all this
Absolutely.
needs to be addressed, and I'm the chair of the Vero Beach Young Republicans, and we think this is absolutely atrocious that they're not giving Floridians a fair chance to decide who they want, not only endorse this, endorse that, and at the end of the day, I don't even know if these endorsements people really care anymore because it's not what the people want. It's not what
Mm.
the people. It's
It-
about
it-
constituency, not about these endorsements.
the endorsements seem like you're going to be a part of the good old boy club. You're going to do as you're told, and you look across the state. Okay, the nepotism that is happening in the state of Florida is unreal. Kathleen Pasadoma, I believe she's the Senate president now. Her daughter is on the Public Service Commission. So the Public Service Commission, I think it's Gabriella Pasadoma. The Public Service Commission is who votes for your electric rate increases. So you have a bunch of useless bureaucrats on there. You have one guy, he was in the FDEP, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, for years and years. You have a council member from Jacksonville. I think there's five members on the Public Service Commission. But you go up to Georgia, and I've heard news reports there of people like, oh, the voters pushed everybody out of the Public Service Commission. Why don't we have a vote in our Public Service Commission in the state of Florida? The same goes with the FWC. The FWC chairman, they're all developers. And the main chairman, or the board of the FWC is all developer, but the chairman of the FWC, Rodney Barreto, he's a lobbyist for Capital City Consulting, and he's a developer. So the people can't even vote out some of these positions because they're government or governor appointed. So all of these appointments that they're making, they affect you in more ways than people realize. So a lady asked me the other day, she says, I stop and I pick up gopher tortoises out of the road. And I would really love to see the FWC reformed where we have people that care on the board or what have you. And I told her, I said, it sounds like you should be on the board of the FWC, because if you're out there picking up gopher tortoises and out of the road so they don't get hit by a car, that's the kind of person you want to conserve Florida's wildlife, not a bunch of developers. They asked the chairman, Rodney Barreto, before the Senate confirmed him to be the chairman again, about some land down in Palm Beach. It was submerged land that he wanted to build on, and they wanted the municipality wanted him to give them the land for conservation land. And he looked right at the board and he said, I'm not in the business of giving land away to people. I'm in the business of making money. And even after saying that, they approved him.
Wow.
Wow.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, and we need this handled, and we want to know how can Vero Beach Young Republicans, Indian River County, how can we help Florida have a fair election here? Because we want election transparency, integrity. We want to have clear candidates, and we can decide ourselves. We don't need a party to kind of pick and choose for us. We want to decide because this is our state. This is not
Mhm.
the party's state or the bureaucrats or the developers. It's our state. We own it, and we want to be Florida first out here. So
The biggest thing is the more letters that get sent in, the more emails, complaints. Hey, we want a fair primary. We want a clean primary that gets sent to Evan Power and pretty much everybody that is on the Republican Party of Florida, the leadership up in the top that's up there as far as the board. And even your local rec, the local Republican Executive Committee down there in Vero Beach, you can send them an email too, let them know. Because what's going to happen is after the board up in Tallahassee votes on it, they have to vote 100%. Then all of the recs, they have to get 60% of the recs to agree to endorse Wilton Simpson. So if you could get 50% of the recs to say, we're not going to do that, that would be enough for them to, not have the votes. Now, what they do from there, they always have a trick up their sleeve. Or I tell people it's like NASCAR. When something happens in NASCAR, they make a rule up. Same thing with the Republican Party of Florida. When something happens they don't agree with, they just make a new rule up.
Mhm. Well, Vero Beach, I think, when I no longer am a member there, I should put that out there. They did not endorse a candidate. At one point, they were told to endorse somebody. I think it might have been the presidential or a Senate seat, and they were like, "No, we're not doing that."
No, it was Trump. It was Trump. We didn't endorse because we wanted, because DeSantis is running. We don't believe in all the endorsement nonsense. We're just like, let Florida pick. You either don't endorse or you do endorse. You don't just pick and choose who you want to endorse and say you don't endorse, because it doesn't make any sense. Then you're just favoritism,
At
for
that point,
whatever.
it's a selection and not an election.
Yeah, we're sick
So
and tired of that. Yeah, so.
your name is on the ballot. So
Mhm.
even if all these people endorse and they do that, and your name is still on the ballot.
My
So
name will still be on the ballot. They think the endorsement is going to help Wilton Simpson to get the endorsement from the party, but you go through X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and you start to see there's a lot of people speaking out about the corruption in the Republican Party of Florida right now, because it's real, it's happening, and just because you went down and bubbled an R on the ballot doesn't stop the corruption from forming in your party. And they make the executive committees, like if you guys became a member of the Republican executive committees, they make the members sign a loyalty oath. And
yes,
that's why
right,
a lot of Republicans do not want to speak out, because they signed a loyalty oath. But
right, right,
to me,
CJ.
Yeah, well, a loyalty oath, but to do not exactly what they're doing right now, and they're already endorsing, not to endorse another Republican over another Republican, but they're already endorsing another Republic. They want to endorse another Republican over another
Mhm.
Republican. So what does it matter if they're not even following their own
Oh,
rules?
so they're not following their own rule there.
So
That's
we don't, all that stuff's, this the party. So what's the problem with having a one party state? Now they feel like they have all the control, they can make the rules. So we want to keep it a free and fair election. Let's keep doing that. How can people help you at your campaign and what you're doing and get the message out
well,
there?
first, I want people to give your name that it says on on the ballot
it's
exactly what it
it's
says.
going to be Matt the Welder on the ballot. So
Really?
what they
Oh,
did to me, okay, so what they did to me when I ran for county commissioner is I went through the game once when I was naive and young or what have you, and now I see how they play. So there's an affidavit you can fill out for a nickname, and I filled out the affidavit for the nickname, I sent it in, and then suddenly the supervisor of election in Hillsborough reached out to the main supervisor of election, or the Department of State, and said, "We have a lot of nicknames here in Hillsborough County. Can we get rid of some of them?" And the Department of State said, "Sure." So they threw my nickname out, and
oh my
they said, "You can't have that nickname." So everybody knows me as Matt the Welder. And I mean, when I say everybody knows me as Matt the Welder, I walk down the street and I have cars pull over sometime, and I'll talk to people for an hour like I've known them my whole life, and they say, "You're Matt the Welder." So I got to thinking, I said, nobody knows me as Matt Taylor. I should just become Matt the Welder. So I legally changed my name to Matt the Welder. And
God.
I out paperworked him essentially
Genius.
to do that. And
Genius.
it served a number of reasons, not just for the election, but everybody knows me as Matt the Welder. So it was just like, all right, we're going to do it like this. And people ask me, like, what did your mother think about this? Or what did your father say about this? And 3 days before I had a court date, my mother sent me a meme, and I hadn't told her any of my plan or anything like that. I had kept it under wraps from everybody. And it was like she had a sixth sense. She sent me this meme that said, when somebody sends me a text or says, "You're not going to believe what your child did," if it was my youngest, which is me, I absolutely will.
Hmm.
That is such a great story, Matt the Welder. So, everybody out there, when you go into that booth, just hit Matt the Welder, I guess, right?
Well,
I
Yeah.
mean, I
and that was the other thing in Hillsborough is I had a number of people, and I have the comments on Facebook and stuff, and even people that have known me my whole life, they called me and they said your name wasn't on my ballot. And I said, did you take a picture? And of course, nobody took a picture. Nobody documented their ballot number or what have you. So if Matt the Welder is not on your ballot on August 18th, find a way to record that, whether you write down the number or another way. Just make sure Matt the Welder appears on your ballot, because I have heard that in the last election, my name wasn't on everybody's ballot.
It's so frustrating. Now, you
Okay.
have quite a following. Before we leave, I do want people to know you're pretty famous. I mean, I went to the Vero Beach event that you were at, and I ran into a friend of mine, and I was like, oh, what are you doing here? He's like, Matt the Welder speaking. So,
Yeah.
how do people follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram, on TikTok, on X, on YouTube, on Facebook. Pretty much every social media that is out there, I'm on, unless it's one of the smaller ones that a lot of people don't use. And it just depends. Like, Facebook was holding me back for the longest time. I was stuck at 25,000 followers, and I could not go up past 25,000 followers for years. And then when Elon Musk bought Twitter and started to say they're throttling people over here on Twitter, it seemed like all of the platforms simultaneously were like, oh no, we can't keep throttling people. He's over here telling them it's a real thing. Shadow banning is real. And I went from 25,000 followers up to 100,000 followers in like it was a matter of months. It was like 8 or 9 months. Next thing I know, I had 3/4 of the following that I had for years. So they were doing everything. They have done everything they can to hold me back in a number of ways. And I
Well,
don't know
yeah.
how. Everybody says, "How do you have so many followers? How do you have so many followers?" And I honestly don't. There's no magic trick I can tell people.
It's organic. People love you. That's why people love your content. They love what you have to say, and they want to do something about it. You're very proactive. You're handling these issues.
Mhm.
Nobody else is talking about it. Now, if they have free speech, if they have free speech in this country, you'll win this election. I believe it because, Wilton is not saying anything. He's not doing anything, and people are tired of that. They're tired of do nothing, just keep riding the ladder to get to the top, and they need some actions here. So we appreciate everything you're doing here. Give us your plug your campaign if people can help you and how they can help you with this any issues.
You can visit treadback.com, and it'll have a contact form down the bottom. If you want to send me a message or what have you, that's the place to do it. It'll have information about when the primary is. I even had links on there, but I believe they're changing the links, so I might have to go back and redo them if they don't work. Links to where you could click to request your ballot or make sure you're registered in the primaries. And the biggest thing is come out August 18th, 2026 and vote. Even if you're not voting for me, come out August 18th. The turnout in 2024, which they said was the most important election of all time, because that's when the presidential election was. In Florida, the Republican primary or the primary itself was only 24% of voters that came out. We need to get those numbers really up, and that will confuse, and that will make the establishment worried again.
Wow, that's
Great, love it,
amazing.
love it, and also we have another guy that exposing corruption. Another Floridian now is James O'Keefe. I guess he's a Floridian now too. So why
Ah,
don't you tell us a little bit about that? Sheila, did you mention that?
the
Well,
James
About
O'Keefe.
your event?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought I was at my.
Yeah,
we're having events on March 10th in West Palm Beach, and please invite your following and anybody who's listening to this. You could go to ablechild25.com. We just turned 25 years old. We've been doing this for a very long time, and we're going to be celebrating. And we have Lara Logan will be the MC. We have James O'Keefe. We have Stephen K. Bannon. We have the Hoff brothers, and we are just super excited. And you could go to ablechild25.com and buy tickets. They're selling pretty fast, believe it or not. We're a month out and we're almost halfway sold out. So Please, and Democrats, Republicans, everybody's welcome. It's about informed consent and protecting children from psychiatric drugs. So it's a human rights issue. And so please visit ablechild.org for our articles and ablechild25.com for tickets. And thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate your courage. And, I hope that they don't do this. I really do, but I'm so glad that your name is on the ballot.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, you have a great evening, and I hope CJ he's in a different location. So it's been a little sketchy with him. So I'm going to figure out how to do that. He usually goes offline. So, I don't know how to say goodnight on this. So if you I guess, just exit out. But thank you so much. And we hope to see you in West Palm, and we'll be following. And I am going to tell CJ to get these letters out through the Young Republicans. I think that is something he could definitely do.
Okay, that sounds good. And I appreciate you guys' time. And I hope you all have a great weekend and maybe enjoy the rest of the Super Bowl.
No, I don't watch that junk. All
Well, me
right.
neither.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, you too, dear.
All right. Bye-bye.
Lights on the horizon, and I'm trying to find my way back home on my own. But I don't know who I'm supposed to be finding. Is somebody lying? 'Cause I was told I would meet my maker, but now I'm just walking with the Savior tonight.